In the words of Anastasia, I'm sick and tired of always being sick and tired. Yes, ladies and gentlebags, my home has eventually been struck by the dreadful Rona. I was about to say that you will have never seen me looking this ugly, but it's dawned on me that several of you went to high school with me, so let's just forget I said that. Hey there guys, my name's Megan if you're new here, and if not, welcome back for another terrifying episode of Killer Weekend, where each week we'll discuss a true crime case and you guys can feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments box below. Did I just look like a duck panicking out of water? Probably. If you like all things true crime, UFO, supernatural, conspiracy theory, and all that good stuff in between, then please hit that subscribe button. I'll be here for you every weekend with our True Crime Killer Weekends, and on and off every couple of Wednesdays with our Weirdo Wednesdays, where we'll discuss something spooky I've heard. Hello my pretties, how are you all? I hope you're all doing better than I am. If you follow me on Instagram, you will know I have recently taken ill with something that rhymes with schmovid. And I'm not gonna lie, it's not fun. Probably the worst symptom for me personally is the nausea. And you know me, I love my food, so this has been a very dark time. I, for one, cannot wait to just be snacking up back with you all once again. But on the topic of food, let me introduce you to this week's sponsor.
Are you tired of eating the same old boring meals?
Yes.
Do you wish you could spice it up in the kitchen?
I mean, also yes, but where is that voice coming from?
Then you need to try HelloFresh.
As you guys know, before I tried HelloFresh, I was suffering from a major case of stovophobia. My recipe rut was out of control and I was tired of seeing the same 4 plain meals on my table. But with 50 menu and market options each week, HelloFresh allowed me to try some exciting new recipes that I would never have thought of all on my own before. As my fiance and I both work full time at the moment, life can get pretty hectic. That's why the quick and easy 20-minute meal recipes with easy cleanup and low prep options are perfect for us, giving us more time to spend together after a long hard working day. The last 2 years have been tough on everyone, including my waistline. Oh no, another pair of jeans that must have gotten shrunk in the washing machine. So that's exactly why I've been loving HelloFresh's pre-portioned ingredients, with each recipe perfectly portioned for 2 people, so that I'm not only eating right and eating the correct amount for my body, but I'm not wasting perfectly good food. Here in this house, we're extremely environmentally conscious. I love those wee polar bears, what can I say? Ho ho ho! So to see that HelloFresh packages your meals in materials that have already been recycled just proves to me that they are a company that care. So if you've been waiting to try HelloFresh,
Now is the time!
go to hellofresh.com and use code MEGAN16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. That's hellofresh.com and use code MEGAN16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. Start your HelloFresh journey today. And now we're back to the episode. Usually, I've told you guys this before, when selecting episodes, I will normally look through my recommendations from you guys out there and I'll just select ones that feel right at that particular time. However, when it's a local case in my hometown, it's a little bit different for me. When these cases are so close to home, for me, it's no longer an unknown male attacked, a female faceless victim, or a child that nobody knows the name of. For me, I imagine that it could be one of my friends, or my sister, or even worse, a child in my family. So in 2019, when a new case was brought to my attention, it stuck with me and even raised the question of how cases are being handled in my very own home city. Tonight, everyone, I will be discussing the mysterious death of Rhys Bonner. Rhys Bonner was born in Barlanach near Glasgow on the 30th of September 1999. The first child to his teenage mother, this only solidified their bond and was just a precursor of how close they would really be. For Reece and his mother Stephanie Bonner, it was them against the world. Reece was her pride and joy. Stephanie did the best she could to provide for her young family, but she was lucky she had the support of her parents, and her father Stephen was extremely close to Reece growing up. Reece as a child would often visit his grandmother and grandfather in the area of Easterhouse, with his grandfather Stephen becoming a permanent male fixture in his life. But wee Reece would not stay an only child for long, and pretty soon his mother had had 5 other children. And because Reece was now the eldest and the man of the house, he was growing up fast, and when he reached his teenage years, he was given a few more serious responsibilities, such as picking up the weekly shop or even taking his younger siblings to school and nursery. Despite his young age, his mother Stephanie would describe Reece as a little gentleman. He would always offer to help her. She never had to ask. Like most boys growing up in Scotland, Reece fell in love with the beautiful game: football. Now, it's an unwritten rule here in Glasgow that if you're gonna support a team, there's only 2 that matter: Rangers and Celtic, and these come with a long-standing bitter rivalry. I actually have memories of being dragged along to the Rangers matches with my dad, and literally he would bribe me with a pie and a cup of Bovril. And if you don't know what a cup of Bovril is, it's literally just like drinking a mug full of gravy. It sounds disgusting, it probably is, but to a Scottish little girl, I was in heaven. But along with the innocent family fun also came the violence and the bigotry. As in most cases within the UK, these tensions flared up due to religious beliefs. It's a well-known fact in Glasgow that if you are a Catholic, you're known to support the Celtic team, and if you're of the Protestant religion, you support Rangers. Because of this long-running animosity between the 2 teams, Old Firm Day, which is the day that Rangers and Celtic will play in a match, can be quite dangerous, especially for those bold enough to wear their football colours after the game ended. I cannot tell you how many boys I knew who were simply attacked for wearing a football scarf in the wrong side of Glasgow on that day. And like that of many 19-year-old boys, for Reece, football was a family affair. His grandfather Stephen also supported Celtic, and it was something they had always shared in together, even watching games every weekend. In fact, on the day of July 24th, Reece had even made plans to go to his grandfather's house to watch a Celtic football game, but he'd made plans to visit his girlfriend in Easterhouse at a McDonald's beforehand. So up he got and put on his Celtic top that morning, a pair of green and blue shorts, black and white Adidas trainers, and a grey cap. His mum Stephanie handed him a £5 note to pay for his McDonald's lunch. As he walked out the door, he said that he loved her and gave his baby brother a kiss goodbye. But despite what Reece told his mother that morning, he wouldn't go to McDonald's to visit his girlfriend, and what would transpire next would not only haunt Stephanie Bonner, but the city of Glasgow for years to come. However, first would come confusion. As 7:45 came and went and the Celtic football match began, Rhys's absence at his grandfather's house became more than apparent. However, he had left his mobile phone at his mum's house that day, so with no direct way to contact him, she had assumed that he'd perhaps stayed at his girlfriend's home that night and would arrive back the next morning. But when he hadn't arrived by the next afternoon, that's when alarm bells began ringing in Stephanie Bonner's mind. The local Scottish police were contacted by the family, but instantaneously, this case was not treated as serious. It's a 19-year-old boy, the summer of love. He's probably just shacked up with his girlfriend somewhere. He'll turn up. Hang in there was what they said. Stephanie Bonner was told to go back home with her children and await her son's arrival through the front door. But Reece would never walk through her front door again. Stephanie, convinced that her son would never stay out of contact for this length of time, turned to the social media outlet of Facebook. She contacted Rhys's friends and even made a public appeal on Facebook to locals in the area asking if anyone had seen him. Nothing could have ever prepared Stephanie for the answers she would receive or for the dark path that they would eventually take her down. Rhys's mum, unable to sleep that night, watched as her Facebook messages flooded with mentions and last sightings of her own son, and one name was mentioned in a lot of them. Now, for legal reasons, I will not say the woman's full name. I will refer to her as Dee Dee. This woman was allegedly last seen with Reece. He was not known to Rhys's family as an acquaintance of Rhys's. She was a 45-year-old woman with short hair and a stocky build, and she was known around the Easterhouse area. Even more disturbing was the Facebook claims that followed. Amongst general well-wishers, Stephanie found terrifying messages of people stating that they knew her son was gone because of their own personal experiences with Dee Dee. Several people who were strangers to Stephanie were claiming that this woman, Dee Dee, held young boys in her flat and was known to police for doing so. One young woman even stated that she held her little vulnerable brother in her flat for days and then attacked him with a baseball bat allegedly. Young boys from Easterhouse would go into this woman's flat, but they would never leave the same. Because of this, and also call it mother's intuition, Stephanie feared that her son was now in immediate danger, and she was correct to worry. With law enforcement still taking a back seat in this investigation because, as if life wasn't unfair enough, Rhys's family decide to take matters into their own hands and they start printing out missing person posters. They start writing all over Facebook, campaigning for someone to give them more information on Rhys's whereabouts. At this point in time, Stephanie believes that Rhys is not voluntarily staying away from his family. It was in doing so that Rhys's family gained access to some CCTV footage that showed not only Reece, but Reece and Dee Dee walking around Easterhouse together. At this point in the journey, the woman enters an off-licensed shop, so a shop that sells cheap booze, essentially. Reece waits outside for her, and then when she comes out, the two then start walking back up the road. The two then walk down Garndine Street, and this is again captured on CCTV, and their movements are said to be calm, normal. They're just walking side by side, having a conversation, nothing to be alarmed about at this point. This is at around 7:45 that evening, and it's the last time that Reece is seen on CCTV. However, there's a few locals who give eyewitness testimonies that say that they were together for a lot longer than this. Eyewitnesses claimed that the two then walked down a country road leading towards the Seven Lochs Wetland Park. They actually catch the attention of locals because Dee Dee started to argue with someone who owned a trailer. She had allegedly sat on the trailer, and whoever owned this piece of machinery came out and wasn't happy that she was sitting on it. She and the owner get into a verbal altercation, which Reece was not involved in, and her and Reece end up walking away from the man. After the heated argument, Reece and Dee Dee were seen standing in the street for over an hour. Some people say 2 hours, some people say an hour and a half. We just don't know. But they were seen with bottles of cider, so it is presumed that they were drinking down this country road. The last sighting of the pair was as they walked further down towards the marshland of Seven Lochs Park. That is the last time anyone sees Reece alive. So with these new witness statements, it would seem the next logical step for law enforcement would be to interview Dee Dee and also to create a search party in the area where Reece was last seen. But that's not what happened. In fact, Reece's family claimed that it was them that took it upon themselves to search the area where they had last saw Reece. However, even though they searched the marshland well into the night, the area was much too vast for them, and without resources, they were going nowhere fast. One thing was certain: the last person to have seen Reece alive, according to all these witness testimonies, was Dee Dee. And that's when Reece's auntie actually managed to track her down in public with a friend. However, what happened next is absolutely bone-chilling. When Reece's aunt did try and confront Dee Dee, she was allegedly extremely evasive. She was looking down at the ground, she couldn't look his auntie in the eye, and several times she even tried to shuffle away as if the conversation was over and his family were just going to let this go. Worst of all, Dee Dee actually lied to his aunt's face. She said that she had no recollection of anyone named Reece and that she didn't know Reece at all. His auntie knew this was a barefaced lie because they already had seen her with Reece on CCTV footage, and too many locals were placing her with Reece on the day of his disappearance. At this point, Dee Dee's friend had had enough. The woman standing next to her then urged Dee Dee to tell Reece's aunt where her nephew was, where this boy was. She even said the words, "You have a nephew. How would you feel if it was you? Tell her where he is." In reaction to this plea, Dee Dee then fled, leaving Reece's family that much more convinced that she was involved in his disappearance. The family, thinking now they finally have enough circumstantial evidence to take to law enforcement and have something done about this, they get a reaction that they were not expecting. Instead of being told that they would follow up in this line of inquiry, the family are even chastised for harassing this woman and told to stay away from her, and that she is well known to local law enforcement, even though no interview has ever formally taken place. His mum, Stephanie Bonner, a woman in an impossible situation at this point, then turns to the social media platform Facebook to make heartbreaking pleas for her son to return home. Sadly, as we would learn on the 8th of August 2019, her pleas would remain unanswered. After continuously reaching out for assistance in the search of Reece, a drone was finally permitted to fly over the marshes where Reece was last seen alive. And this is sadly how the partially clothed remains of 19-year-old Rhys Bonner were discovered 2 weeks after he was initially reported missing. Stephanie and Reece's family members were absolutely devastated by the discovery, understandably so, But the condition of his remains only led to more questions. One shoe of Rhys's had been thrown up into a tree, something he clearly couldn't have done himself. He was wearing a pair of boxers, but the shorts he had been wearing on top of his boxers were now missing, and they still to this day have not been located. Rhys's hat that he was wearing was missing at the time as well. No DNA or fingerprint evidence has allegedly been found from the crime scene, but to Stephanie Bonner, this is no surprise considering the horrific video footage that she would later receive from locals on the handling of her son's crime scene. Without any cordons, no tents, nothing to shield his dignity at all, Stephanie watched on as 5 men wearing red coats dragged her son's body through the marshland with ropes tied to his limbs. Neighbours, men, women and children looked on in sheer horror as this young man was taken and dragged through mud and stones whilst laying face down. Several complaints were made by locals about the treatment of Rhys's body that day, but for Stephanie Bonner and Rhys's family, this was just a perfect example of the disrespect they'd received throughout the entire investigation. It had never been about protecting Rhys for local law enforcement. Stephanie Bonner feels like she was stopped every step of the way trying to get justice for her son. So what were law enforcement hiding? What was Dee Dee hiding? More and more messages of support flooded into the Justice for Rhys Bonner Facebook page. Some of these including several locals' own horror stories about Dee Dee, which eventually led to the page being mysteriously taken down. But despite someone trying to silence these claims, it appeared that Dee Dee's time was coming to an end. Someone discovered a baseball cap in her own close. So for those who don't know, a close is literally just like a hallway that connects several other apartments. A baseball cap was found and it was matching the description of the one that Reece left the house wearing that day. The strange thing about this is that it had been freshly washed and was reeking of washing up powder. So what next? Crucial evidence found literally a stone's throw away from this woman's front door? Well, nothing happened next because it wasn't taken seriously by law enforcement. Days after her son's body had been discovered, Stephanie Bonner was still fighting for a mother's basic human right. The rights to her son's autopsy and toxicology reports. Now, she did have to push quite hard to get these, and even when she did receive both of these items, it was seen that a lot of information was either missing or hadn't been noted down. So still with no answers to speak of, what did Stephanie do? She fought. She did exactly what she'd been doing since the day her son walked out that door. She fought for him. But with the answers, yet again, only came more questions. Rhys's cause of death was listed as undetermined. His toxicology report was a little bit more fruitful. It said that he had alcohol and also street homemade Valium in his system, something that Rhys's friends and family swore he had never taken before. I personally have seen many reports on this case about how readily available street Valium is to young kids in Glasgow and how popular it is amongst the youths. Now, can I just say, I've grown up my entire life in Glasgow and never once have I ever been offered street Valium. I myself, as a Glasgow girl, am extremely doubtful that this 19-year-old young boy would chance his first experience with drugs with a stranger, and also with a drug he was extremely unfamiliar with. If you look into the real history of street Valium within the Glasgow community, it's said to be extremely popular within the homeless community and those with already existing drug addictions. Not young teenagers looking to try something for the first time. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that Rhys unknowingly took Valium and it was maybe slipped to him. Maybe he was thinking he was taking something else, but I just don't believe that he went to a random woman that he barely knew to try drugs for the first time. So one may ask, if he wasn't voluntarily taking Valium, then why was it in his system? Well, Rhys's mum has her own answer for this. Because of the condition of Rhys's remains, him being found partially half naked, she believes that there could have been a sexual motive to this crime. But DD has long stated in the public that she is a lesbian and has no sexual interest in young boys. So if she's not the one who was sexually motivated, then who else could have been? Well, if you're raised in the Glasgow area, then you will know we have had a long-running issue with sexual violence. It's not something you'll see in the news very often, but it is a serious issue here. Between the years of 2016 and 2017, there were several incidents in where young men were lured through a promise of drugs or house parties with women to unknown locations. When they arrived at those locations, they would then be sexually assaulted by a group of several men. This also happened to several boys who were on their way home from a night out. They would go down alleyways to go to ATM machines where they would be struck over the back of the head and then sexually assaulted or taken to a location to be sexually assaulted. But we don't talk about those kinds of assaults here. And with the amount of young male sexual assault survivors who come forward being so low due to the fear of public perception, these cases have slowly faded into obscurity. So is it possible that Stephanie Bonner's baby boy was lured into a sexually violent situation and, like so many before him, his case is being swept under the rug? Whatever the motive for this, why wasn't this case treated more seriously? And I think I'd be naive if I said that geography didn't play a factor in this. Take a moment for yourself and Google Barlanark and Easterhouse. What do you find? Nothing positive probably, which isn't 100% accurate for the communities that live there. But it does explain that the police in these areas are extremely underfunded and overworked, leading to a dislike on both sides. So when another 19-year-old boy went missing in Easterhouse, I'm pretty sure that there was a few choice words said around the station that day. Do I believe that if Reece had been from the affluent area of Bears Den instead, that his case would have been treated differently? Yes, I definitely do. Even media perception affected how the public saw this case. Looking back through articles, you will see mentions of Reece wearing his football top and carrying around an open bottle of cider, just hinting that he was that little bit different from you and I reading the paper. But does that make him any less deserving of justice? When I look at Reece, I see every boy I went to school with who would drink on the Saturday nights on the streets of Glasgow, some of them who are now police officers themselves. You know who you are, it's our little secret, it's fine. But that's my point. He was just like any boy growing up in Glasgow when I was young. I see Stephanie Bonner, a tough Glasgow mum, an advocate for her boy, just screaming out for justice. She reminds me of any one of my friends' mums growing up in Glasgow in the early 2000s. The kind of mum who would look after you whilst your mum and dad were at work. The kind of woman who would feed all the neighbourhood kids during the summer just so they could go out and stay outside playing that little bit longer. To me and my friends, the Bonners are the perfect example of a regular Glaswegian family. Since Reece's disappearance, Stephanie has become a fearsome advocate for missing and murdered children. She's doing amazing things, all whilst trying to ensure that no other mother has to deal with the ignorance and disrespect that she has. Rhys Bonner did not end up in the marshes alone that night. Who threw his shoe up into that tree? Who washed his baseball cap? Who stole his shorts? But most importantly, how did he die? The autopsy report stated undetermined and not much else, but what do we know about what that really means? As we've discussed it before on this channel, I have a favourite book. It's called Beyond the Tape by Dr. Marie Cassidy, and it explains the shortcomings of the Scottish pathologists between 1980 and even today. And it's no secret that pathologists here in Scotland have been overworked for decades, often leading to mistakes and miscarriages of justice. Were this young man's remains examined properly? And if so, why are we still asking almost 3 years later what happened to Rhys Bonner? Reece was a dedicated big brother. He loved his mum, his football, his friends and his family. He deserved better than this. So I beg you, take a look at his picture. Do you remember anything, even the tiniest detail from the 24th of July 2019? If so, please come forward and help us get justice for Reece. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's case. It was definitely an emotional one for me. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up for me. It really helps my channel. There will be some petitions in regards to Reece's case in the comments box below. If you can, please just take 5 minutes out of your day. It could lead us to getting answers for Rhys Bonner's family. If you're watching for the first time and you're thinking that tiny bit of snot that has probably been dripping from my nose for the last half an hour hasn't put you off, then please hit that subscribe button. I'll be here for you every weekend. If you would like to see what I'm up to in my day-to-day boring life, then please feel free to follow me. Not down a dark alleyway though, that's for you. On Instagram, at Megan True Crime. I'm also 900 years old and I have a Twitter page at Megan True Crime. I love you all so much. I'm literally going to go and lie in my bed now. I'm feeling so ill. Thank you all for your amazing support on my channel. I will be seeing you very soon. But until then, lock your doors, don't talk to strangers, and don't talk to 45-year-old women who like to keep children hostage in their houses. Just an all-round good piece of life advice, I think, on that one. See ya! I have literally no energy. Bye.